everybody. I'm talking to someone today I can best describe as the embodiment of that word, iconoclast. He has spent many years turning the practice of challenging convention and tradition into a fine art, almost as much time as he spent perfecting his actual art. Now, if you hear him perform, it can be a deeply emotional, sublime experience. If you read him, it can be an intellectually demanding experience. Either way, you've got to go all in. If you haven't guessed already who I'm talking about, let me tell you, TM Krishna is in the house.
Thank you, Anuradha, for having me. It's such a pleasure to finally have a conversation.
Finally, na?
I know.
Welcome to Bombay.
Thank you.
You're here in Bombay with another new book,
Yep.
right? We, the People of India, Decoding a Nation's Symbol. It sounds very, very meaningful, and I'm guessing that this is a personal quest for you. You want to tell me what you were seeking when you set out to do this?
Absolutely. I think it's often many of these things are figured out post facto because you just land up doing something, right? Or you land up starting something. I mean, the fact of the matter is that for a very long time, what I see, hear, observe around me, and maybe at some level even within myself, has disturbed me. Something fundamental, and as I say this to you, my stomach churns. Something fundamental about us as people seems to have changed. Violence seems to have become a normative. Abuse is fine. There is no difference between discussion, debate, and trolling. People can get hit on the streets. It's okay because somebody else hit somebody. Whataboutery seems to has become a logical argument. So, I mean, I think, and we are bombarded by this every day. And I'm talking to you, fairly comfortable, privileged guy who is seeing this, right? I think this was really bothering me. And it was around the time that I think I started thinking about the song, the national anthem, singing it. I started singing all the verses in concerts.
So, all the verses, what are we singing when we stand up in the multiplex or even otherwise, or, on Independence Day, Republic Day?
It's a good question.
What are the other verses?
The national anthem has 5 verses.
Okay.
And what we sing is only the first verse, which is a geographical description of India. He takes you through the peninsula and takes you up there. The second verse is a description of the people who are in this India. And he says, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Parsis, all these people live in this land.
So where we end at Jaya He, Jaya
There's
Jaya,
a next
Jaya,
verse.
Jaya He.
There's another verse. Then there's another verse. So the 5 verses is about this eternal charioteer that you could call him God, you could call him a divine being, you could call him a guide, you can call him what you want. And him itself you can ask, but this gender itself is a question. But anyway, who is both your guide, your companion, as you travel in that rugged road of time, and he's also describing the emotional landscape. Tagore is saying the land is in darkness, people are sad, and there is gloom. And then he says, maybe finally the sun will rise behind the eastern hills, which is the northeast, by the way. And he finishes the song in hope. But the song is an emotional trajectory, it's a geographical trajectory, and it is a description of the people. For me, the song is encapsulated in 3 words: Jana, Gana, Mana. The multiplicity of people, the individual, and the manas, or the heart and mind of all of them.
So the internal mind of the individual, right?
Yes, it is. And that's what, if you think of it this way, what is public policy or public action? It's a conversation between the internal mind and the social minds in plural. So singing this, I think, moved me even more. And I also parallelly started working on the Edicts of Ashoka. And I was thinking, what is this capital in Sarnath? So I think I was seeking meaning, honestly. I was seeking some meaning to how does one grapple with what's going on? What is the history? What's the complexity of the history? So this book is written by actually a concerned citizen. That's all it is. And it is a book that looks at history very deeply. But as you would have known, it keeps coming back to what's happening today, what I see every day.
So you distill, which is why I said this is a personal quest, right? This is not about history for the sake of history or from an academic way.
No, it's not.
It is a quest to try and understand history via these symbols that we all take for granted and know so well, or at least I thought I did. I had no idea we had anything after Jaya He, Jaya Jaya. Jaya. I am feeling so embarrassed to have to admit this, but I didn't know.
আহ্বানো প্রচরিত শুনিতব উদারো বাণী হিন্দু বৌদ্ধ শিখো যেন পরশিকো মুসলমান হিন্দুস্তানি. That's the next verse.
I do not often have guests who have reduced me to tears, and every time I have attended a concert of yours, I don't know what it is, because I do not understand classical music in an intellectual way at all. And it's just too early. Save the singing for the end, Krishna, because it'll be difficult.
Thank you.
Let's do the intellectual part and then get to the emotion. When did you identify these symbols? And it's very interesting. Your first chapter is the national flag, whereas I thought the natural first chapter would be Jana Gana Mana, that's the music.
Yes.
And that is the music that represents and the words that symbolize India.
So, initially this book was supposed to be a book of 5 essays of 5,000 words each. This was the original plan. But as I started reading and thinking and looking through the debates we have now and debates in the past, I felt there's much more that I need to spend time. So I spent about 5.5 years on this book, actually. And there were two questions. There are so many symbols. Why these symbols, right? For me, most of them were obvious. The preamble was an interesting choice because we don't consider it a symbol of India. But the fact is, the preamble is the last...
Became a symbol.
Yeah. The last thing that the Constituent Assembly does is actually gives ourselves the preamble. And in a way, it encapsulates symbolically what we have given the rest of the pages of the Constitution. And as you know, in the CA protests, it's become a symbol. You find it on T-shirts now, you find it on books. So I think it's become a symbol. And therefore, I felt it needed to be part of this discussion. On which order was also a very good question, because we didn't know. Like, should we start with Jana Gana Mana? Then finally we came to this decision that let's go with some amount of timeline. So depending on when each were adopted or put into action, the preamble was technically put in action in November of the previous year, but the Constitution came into being on 26 January 1950. So we put the preamble in and we said the first was the flag. And we went in that order.
Therefore,
that's the order we went in. It's a very good question, because we were like, God, how should we start? Should we start with the preamble, for example? So that was a discussion that we did have, actually.
Or the starting point, which
is
my
music, which is my starting point. Right? Or should that be also the starting point? Yeah, that's how we did it.
So let's talk about Jana Gana Mana. Let me go at it the way I feel instinctively, associated with you. And it is interesting that to talk about how Jana Gana Mana became our national anthem, you actually talk about the other song, Vande Mataram, which is in its 150th year, and which India and this country and our government is celebrating in a very, very big way, right? I don't think a lot of people know how close Vande Mataram came to becoming the national anthem.
Absolutely true.
And how many people, including Rabindranath Tagore, who wrote Jana Gana Mana, also had something, some association with
very emotionally connected to it. Yes, he was.
So tell us that story.
So I realized very soon that it's impossible to discuss Jana Gana Mana without Vande Mataram. Their history, their stories are coupled. And in a way, I feel they're also, the two songs represent our struggles of identities in a slightly larger, more nuanced manner. So Vande Mataram is a song that Bankim writes sometime between 1872 and 1875. Some scholars place it closer to 74, 75. But the interesting thing is you have to look at Vande Mataram in different ways. The first is it one song? Is the first question. He writes 2 verses first. Most scholars agree. And he writes the 3rd and 4th verse when he starts or when he is writing the text Anand Mat, which is published in 1881. So first, it's a song that is, it's verses that are added on to a song. Now, so one thing I could do, which scholars and historians didn't and probably could not do, is do an aesthetic analysis of the poetry and the music. Okay?
Which I was able to do. Read that,
So if you look at that, you see that the song has each verse by itself structurally works. You put the 4 verses together, the song doesn't hold. This is a structural problem, I realized. So I was saying, why is there this problem is the question that the musician in me, there are over 150 tunes for Vande Mataram, by the way.
So I'm most familiar with the Hemant Kumar.
That one, no.
No, the
Hemant Kumar one.
The film one.
Oh, that's good. That's
the film one.
You're the first person to spot that tune. Okay, but
that's how I know Vande Mataram.
Okay,
everything else is subsequent.
Interesting. So, but the first, so the Tagore loves the first verse. He says it himself, and he's specifically talking about the first verse. Tagore first tunes only the first verse. There's a YouTube video of him singing it. I urge everybody to go and listen to it.
I did go and listen to it.
I love it.
Yeah, but he doesn't have a
he doesn't have
voice.
But I love what he brings to it as a personality in it, not as a musician, not as a trained voice. And then there are the people, there are people who tune it before him, whatever. I won't go into the details. And then the 4 verses are tuned. Even he published the 4 verses as tuned. So Vande Mataram, its main political point comes during the partition of Bengal.
Yeah.
When it becomes a song, a slogan, it's attacked by the British government. People are not allowed to say it on the street.
Yeah.
So that's when Vande Mataram gets traction. Okay?
And gets associated with being a cry against the British.
Absolutely. Now, but even at that time, there is some discomfort with the song. And the discomfort comes with one fundamental thing, is that the moment it became a 4-verse song, right? And it became an operative part of the text, the nature of that song changed. Because Anand Mat as a text is a complicated text.
Yeah. And you address that.
Yes, I've addressed it.
Tell us that story.
So, there are 2 views. Okay?
Yeah.
One view is to say Anand Mat is a political text that is against colonialism and against those who were agents of colonialism. In this case, it was Mir Jafar, who was the ruler.
Yeah.
But if you read the text, I don't read Bangla, I've read 2 English translations of the text. You very soon realize that the anger was not only against the ruler, but the anger is also shown against Muslims in general. This song is a cog in that entire storytelling. This song is part of what the sannyasins group are singing. And what are the group doing? They are going to villages, they are attacking Muslims. This is all there in the text. Anybody can please go read it.
Sure.
And so, which is why the song becomes a problem. It's part of this slightly more complicated narrative, not anti-colonial. And finally, you know how Anand Mat ends? Okay, the Anand Mat ends with what happening, the protagonist saying, the Muslim ruler is gone, but the British have come. So a mystical character appears and says, no, it's good the British are now the rulers.
Oh, really?
Yes. We need them to rule for some time. During that period, the Hindus have to gather together, get knowledge, get educated, so that we may then, suggestion is that we may rule some point. But the fact is, it ends in not saying throw the British away. Let's be very clear. It ends by saying at this point, it is good to have them.
But see how complex history
Can you
is
see how
and how
complicated?
it gives you
So that one song has so many stories.
So the Anand Mat, the story and the text has a story. The song, the first 2 stanzas go in a certain way. And you feel that next 2 stanzas may have
definitely
been
goes in a different way. I mean, you can very clearly see that the Durga emergence in the song is in the third text, in the third verse.
And what is interesting, and you talk about this in your book, is that because of the partition of Bengal in 1906, 05, around that time, it became a song that started getting used in protest about
and so in its usage, it was anti-colonial, by the way.
Yeah.
So that's also true.
That is why this is so fascinating.
And we have to understand Vande Mataram in this manner. Now you have this song, it's become popular, it's translated in many languages. Other people are making songs similar to it. For example, Subramanya Bharati in Tamil Nadu is making, the Vande Mataram is there in so many songs of his. This is happening. Jana Gana Mana is nowhere in the picture at this point. So 1911, King George is arriving in India for the Darbar in Delhi. And this is recorded by Tagore himself. Tagore is asked by one of the local royalties, I'll just call it. Apparently, people suspect it's him. That's also under mystery. Can you compose a song in honor of George? And it's very clear, and Tagore himself says that he was stunned and baffled and angry.
He's quoted.
He's quoted.
Yeah.
So he actually writes a song which is on the Adhinayaka. And of course, this song is never then present to George or sung in front of George, nothing. And that's the other rumor, right? That Adhinayaka is George. Is just completely wrong, and that's been refuted by Tagore himself more than once. And there are conversations with others in which also you realize that. Now, what does he do? The same song is given to the Congress meeting, which is happening December 1911 in Kolkata. And there is a second confusion that happens. Now, what happens is 1911, the partition of Bengal is nullified. So, a parallel story is we think of freedom, right? Or Swaraj. But there were many degrees of freedom that we are seeking, from wanting equality to rights, and then wanting a place in the decision-making table. So wanting to be entirely independent the way we understand was a long process of iterations of pushbacks. So every meeting, the king was lauded in many of these meetings. You know, hail to the king is very normal in Congress meetings that is happening, right? Now what happens, since George has nullified the partition, they're happy. So there is a Hindi song, which is sung in praise of George in that meeting on the same morning. For hailing the fact that George has rescinded the partition, then Jana Gana Mana has sung. Now here the British press either wantonly got it wrong or got it wrong. They confused the two songs, and everybody is saying a song in praise of King George was sung, and they think it's Tagore's song. Bangla press gets it right. The Bengali newspaper also gets it right. So this creates the second level of confusions. Okay, but interesting thing is Jana Gana Mana was not an everyday song that people knew as much as Vande Mataram.
So I'm going to quote you back to you. You say, it would be fair to say that Jana Gana Mana had not yet caught the people's fancy. It had not become an earworm, a tuneful memory. If not for the controversy of the 1930s, Vande Mataram would have become our national anthem because the dominant Congress leaders do not seem to have understood why the song was unacceptable. They only made the necessary philosophical shift later in order to ensure religious harmony. You know, it explains so many things. It explains why the Hindu nationalists today
you hear the same thing.
Have adopted it.
It's in fact the arguments that everybody's using today are exactly the same as what was done in the 30s. So in the 30s is when there is a pushback. See, Jinnah and the Muslim League are pushing back on three things parallelly.
Right.
They're pushing back on Vande Mataram. They're pushing back on also the Congress flag, then the Congress flag, saying that you're calling it the national flag, we've not accepted it. They're also pushing back on what they call Hindi imposition. Very interesting. Thinking that Urdu and all is going to. So these three things are being pushed back at that time. And Vande Mataram is at the fulcrum of it. It's then that, for example, Nehru first reads Anandamat. And he says, now I understand why they could be irritated by it. So another thing, people, I want to set one more record straight. That, the 3 and 3rd, 4th was removed and, it was for Muslim appeasement and stuff like that. It's just such a wrong way to understand the complexity of building a nation. We're looking at the 30s. Everybody knew we were close to it. We were not too far from freedom. And it's about bringing multiple communities together, finding common ground, finding negotiations, finding a way to reach that word that we use in the preamble called fraternity. And it is in this absolutely wonderful spirit that these discussions are happening. At one part, Nehru is defending the song and saying no. At the same time, he's realizing there's a problem and there is pushbacks from... And in all this, you have Gandhi sending out a little private note saying, let's do it this way. But, we should be celebrating this kind of discussion and accommodations and understand. Isn't it beautiful that you and I want to stay together somewhere and we say, can we listen to each other?
There is a lady who you admire very much, and so do I, and that is Aruna Roy. I remember a conversation with her where she says, in a democracy, nobody's boss.
So true.
I think what you were saying just now is just that, right? Nobody's boss.
Exactly that.
Everybody's negotiating.
Yes. And that's democracy. And the fact that you listen to every voice and say, I understand your problem. I may have a different opinion. I may still believe it's a beautiful song, but I understand why you could feel hurt. And let's find a way. And it is in that spirit that the third and fourth verses were removed. To be honest, even now most people who know Vande Mataram know only the first verse. And I'll tell you, the first verse is gorgeous. I love the first verse. It's a beautiful verse and it's a descriptive verse.
If you want to sing it, please sing it. I suddenly realized that I have stopped you from bringing it.
So I'm going to sing a little bit of the Tagore tune, which I like.
Okay.
Now the tune that everybody knows is Vande Mataram, Vande Mataram, Sujalam, Shupalam, Malayaja Sheetalam. It's gorgeous. And the words, the sa and the sha. Sasya Shamalam, Mataram, Vande Mataram. But the government of India has not published this. The Indian government of India has Tagore's tune. Vande Mataram, Sujalam, Shupalam, Malayaja Sheetalam, Sasya Shamalam, Mataram, Vande
It's gentler.
Exactly what I say. I compare the tunes and say there's something, the tonality changes. It's not a boast. There's some, which is, when I hear Tagore sing and I describe it, it's like I almost feel like he's standing in front of the Himalayas. And
you also said something, it's like a call to Azan, the religiosity that is there, implicit to this.
Exactly, even we kind of created problems with these words. The religiosity of that is something deeply profound.
Yeah.
It's something you should feel.
So just indulge me, Hemant Kumar's tune.
Yes.
That's a different tempo, right?
Everything. So Hemant Kumar, Dilip Kumar Roy's tune, all tunes are different.
Yeah.
But, in all those tunes, what you find is that they're all struggling to put it together. The third, especially third and fourth verse, they're all struggling. So they're not going to put in rhythm, they're not putting meter, so they're making adjustments. See, these composers do always.
Yeah.
When the words...
And only you would know.
Yeah, only when the words don't fall into a systematic rhyme scheme, internal and lengthwise, then it's difficult to put into music. Jana Gana Mana is the opposite. It's just perfect in flow and rhyme scheme and structure. That's why it's very easy to sing it. You can see it in the cadence. And I've said in the song, actually Jana Gana Mana is an unusual tune. It's not a usual tune. You're used to it, so you think it is.
Yeah.
It's actually a very unusual tune. It's very, if I heard that tune for the first time, it makes jumps I wouldn't expect. In many ways. So Jana Gana Mana comes into being much later into public domain. I think actually it went into the intellectual circles first. And then came into what I would call every person's song. But these two songs are fascinating because they're speaking very different languages. They're speaking very different ideas of unison. They're speaking very different ideas of who occupies this space. So, in a way, the contestations that you hear, which is what I say, the contestation you hear today, is like a contestation between these two songs in some level, because there are two different imaginations. And these are the imaginations that are tussling with each other. But if you understand the complexity of each one of them, I think we will see it differently. I think we should see it differently.
Yeah, I mean, Krishna, I read that bit out because there is this thing that it seems to be today, when you look at the politics around these two songs, about a competitive nature, this competition, and this represents who we are today, and that doesn't, and that has been sneaked in, and that is actually misrepresented as being, in praise of the...
Durga.
No. Vande Mataram in praise of Durga, Jana Gana Mana
in praise of King George and all,
King George V.
Yeah.
So, what is interesting is that both did actually resonate in different ways at different times, but there was a conscious decision about why Jana Gana Mana became accepted.
I think that is what we need to recognize and ask why.
Yeah.
I think it became clear that Jana Gana... Look, we are such a complicated land. Forget about, the languages, the food, the people, the faiths, and let's also, even within the faith, we keep talking about between. The idea of what you're Hindu in one gully is different from another gully.
I mean, the Shaivites and the Vaishnavites, the Shias and the Sunnis.
Or the rituals, for example, the rituals that happen, one kind of temple does not happen another kind of temple. One kind. So, see, even within what you would call one faith, there is so many variations.
Yeah.
Now, when you have this land of all these people, what are we seeking? We are seeking that we live together, accepting that we are different, but find a way, find common ground in the ethics that we evolve as people to live together. This is, I think, very simple at this level.
Yeah.
Okay? It is actually simple. Yeah. When you're seeking that, what kind of song would you want to represent this land? You need a song that is saying that we are all from different parts. We are different kinds of people, but we are all celebrating each other's hearts, each other's minds, and we will be in rejoice of that. There's no doubt in my mind that Jana Gana Mana was the song. It is the song that had to do this. And Vande Mataram had its place in history. Let's be clear. That I want to say this, that it had its place in history at a certain period of time when it played a role. And that was between 1905, 1906, that period. And it did have a political effect. Even if it was contested to some extent, it had a political effect. I do not believe beyond that it could represent this idea of coming together of a new nation. And therefore, I think we made the perfect choice by saying Jana Gana Mana is what we will adopt. But even in the Constituent Assembly, you can see the tension is there, which is why they say it will be respected equally. Right? Yeah. So that is also wonderful accommodation if you think of it, right? That you're not saying you're going to throw that song away. You're going to be saying, yes, Jana Gana Mana is what represents this country, and that will be the anthem. But we understand that this had a role in our freedom struggle, and therefore we will respect the song.
And at some point, like you quote the Harivansh Rai Bachchan illustration, meant something.
Yeah, of course. And he says it. He says it that it meant something at some point, right? So it is, that's why I say Vande Mataram is a very complex piece of history and politics. If you call it a political device at some level, it's a very complex device. And we must be willing to, I think, come face to face with it. You know, if you're going to just get very emotional, saying, how can you say this about it? Then we can't discuss. We have to think of it in the complexity that it is. And you still can have a different opinion than me. But we have to look at all its different facets.
Let's talk about your first chapter. Now let's go in the chronology that you set out, which is the national flag. And that actually is the first, if you say symbol of India, that is the symbol that just comes to mind, right? The flag. Take us through the colors. I mean, what I find fascinating in the book is that you've talked about the iterations of the flag, and there's a little bit of detective work. There's so many different sources.
Oh my God.
Multiple sources, stories, articles, letters, exchanges, British media reports, European media reports. I'm referring to the Madam Kama unveiling
the drama over there.
So what is interesting is the kind of iterations the flag has gone through, but I want you to talk about the colors, because do they represent the religions of India, or do they represent other things, or did they go on to represent other things? And then I want you to tell me how you interpret the colors, because you've personalized that, and I quite like what white stands for instance.
Yes. So it's very interesting. So I'll start with Pingali, who is a very interesting personality. Yeah. He's not some very famous man. He's in what they call national college. And so that was the product of 1905. We had national colleges started by Indians across the country. So this man is suddenly fascinated by flags because he sees Nivedita, Sister Nivedita's flag published in Modern Review, where she makes a Vajra, which has some mythical story of a rishi creating a super weapon using his own bones and all that. So it's some universal sacrifice representative, and then she creates one flag. He creates 28 designs. Okay. Now, other people have written about it, but I actually saw the 28 designs published in that book. They're the most complicated designs you can ever see, because they have like so many facets. And what are the symbols? Sometimes it's the plow, sometimes it is Kali, sometimes it is some deity. And the most interesting, he said, okay, how do I divide this nation? He comes to two conclusions. He says Indians see themselves, one conclusion actually, primarily religiously. And he says religion cannot be separated from Indians. It's an important observation.
It is.
And he says, therefore, if you go to create a flag, the flag has to represent all communities. So he says, you have Parsis, you have Hindus, you have Muslims, you have Christians, you have all these people. And he says, okay, what do we do in the flag? He says, each one given a color. Fine, understood. Then he says, but how much should they occupy on the flag? Depending on the population, the bandwidth will increase or decrease. This is kind of crazy if you think of it. So you can imagine how complicated his flags were. You have this man trying. At the same time, Gandhi is not impressed with his design. He's gone to the Congress committee and he's presented his flag, he's done all that.
And he has a charkha.
So Gandhi has not even created a flag. So one thing is Gandhi was not interested in a flag for a long time. To place that on record. Okay, it's only around 1919, around that 1920 is when he is interested in a flag. And at that time he says, okay, when this idea comes, this idea of the three colors comes into being. It's red, it's not saffron, it's in a different order also. No, but he doesn't know what motive to give.
Actually, I was like, red?
Yup, it was red. And he doesn't know what motive to give. And by the way, when we finalized our flag, when it became saffron, in the committee, one of the experts' point was actually red is a better color logically than saffron because saffron tinge is very difficult to get. Very scientifically, he said red is an easier tinge. Anyway, so they come with these colors, and at that time, Gandhi is also describing them religiously. He is saying green is for Muslims, he's saying the red is for Hindus, and the white is other communities, Christians, etc. He is saying. So what is the emblem in between? His friend Hansraj tells him the best is the charkha. And charkha was completely his literal non-violent symbol. So he loves it. He goes to Bezwada for a meeting. He knows Pingali is there, calls Pingali and says, make a flag like this. So though we have been attributing the flag to Pingali, the flag, in my opinion, was designed by Gandhi. When Gandhi himself says it at least 2 or 3 times in his life, saying, I invented it, I was the one who was the creator of it, so I'm going to shift that narrative. I give Pingali the great respect of being one of the first to imagine that we need this representation.
And what can it be?
Yes, you have to give him that credit. He also tries linguistically. He says we also linguistically divide it. So we should flag that divides us. Anyway, fascinating. So you have this flag. Now, for a long time, Gandhi is only talking about this flag on religious terms. It is only, I think, if my memory is right, 1929, when he shifts mode. Now, it's obviously, so this is also fascinating. Why is he shifting mode? He's seeing there are tensions. He's saying that we need to think beyond religion. We need to bring people together. We're looking at freedom. So there's a lot of thought and mechanism goes into changes in narrative. He says, no, this can be sacrifice. Those words start appearing, right? Truth, righteousness, sacrifice, all these words start appearing. And that's when the story of the meanings start changing. So I was curious when I started this. And of course, the final change. Also, I want to say one more thing. There were other flags parallelly happening. This is very important. That they didn't contest each other. That you could have a home rule flag in Tilak's, which is different. Home rule flag of Annie Besant, which is different. Which is all around 1916, 17, 18. Then you have this Vajra idea. Then you have Kama in Stuttgart. Then you have the Kolkata flag in 1906. All different versions.
So, Krishna, the interesting thing is that in a country that is so vast, geographically and in terms of people, you should have as many ideas and conversations.
This is the most important part. What I find fascinating is that they were willing to accommodate all these flags. Doesn't that mean accommodate different ideas, different ideologies? You have the Hindu Mahasabha at the same time creating their own flag, saying, no, it should be only a saffron flag or whatever. So all this goes on and finally we decide these colors. So when I approached this chapter, for example, I was like, where do I begin? See, one of the 2 symbols that a lot have been written about is both the flag and the anthem. I knew. So I read all the material. So I said, I should start and talk about the colors and what they meant for me personally and what could they mean, right, beyond that. Which is why, like the color that I really struggled with was white for me. And white for me in our modern perspective, in a liberal perspective, is problematic because it's very puritanical. You think, and we know, for example, as Indians, whiteners, skin whiteners, all these things, right? So for me, my brain's automatically going there. And also, if you look at the problem of color and race in the other parts of the world, there's this whole issue of the white man and colonially a white man. So it's like, how do I approach the white? Because it is supposed to represent purity, right? So I then realized, then we should maybe think of it differently. And that's when I bring the idea of right to information.
Yeah.
And the fact that you be open, you be a society where you don't hide. So the RTI for me was the idea of the white.
What a time to be talking about the RTI. No?
Exactly. So, exactly, with all that's happening, I think it's even more important we speak about it, because what it has done is phenomenal. And it has, the whole idea of sovereignty of the nation is in the citizen. The RTI is an example of the sovereignty being with the citizen.
In fact, what I felt as I was reading your book is that, this is about the Indian Republic that we created after we got freedom.
Yes.
So what kind of India, right? And it is also about the Republic of Krishna. It's also about the Republic of Anuradha. It's also about the Republic of Praveen.
You're right.
So I mean, our cameramen, it is individuals trying to interpret what this means and how they can, what is the word? Not come to terms with it, but how they can...
But be in dialogue even, be in dialogue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it. How they can be in dialogue with this. Also, what is interesting, and you, in this pretty long chapter on the national flag, you use Periyar to make a point.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very a stark point about how symbols should be treated and what symbols have become. Symbols have become more important than the people they represent. So take us through the point you make with the use of Periyar.
So Periyar is, of course, a fascinating personality. Yeah. Most people who speak about Periyar don't understand the context, don't understand his political rhetoric or his political techniques. Yeah. It's far more complicated and you must be able to... So, when I was looking at, this idea of symbols, like in India, you have this act where insult to national symbols.
Yes.
You're not allowed to insult. There's a category. Yeah. And if you read some of them, it is actually something like, it's like, seriously? I mean, you almost feel that way. The oddest thing for me was to find out that the first time this law in any form was ever put into practice was in Tamil Nadu. And I was like, no, you're not serious. Yes. So why? Because Periyar is a man who's used attacking symbols for a long time. And his idea was through that. So he was trying to push you. Yeah. He always pressed, unless I push you, you're not going to realize and come into conversation. Yeah. That was his technique. Yeah. So he at I think the meeting in Tanjavur, they're celebrating his birthday or whatever, he says, I'm going to burn the constitution. And why am I going to burn it? Because casteism still exists, people are discriminated, it's given me nothing, and I'm going to burn it. Now the Congress government in Tamil Nadu goes into a frenzy, saying that, how can you burn the constitution? They decide to bring this law against insulting national symbols. So Annadurai at the Legislative Assembly makes what I think is a phenomenal speech. Yeah. He says, don't you understand this man? He's fundamentally saying this. Why is he saying he'll burn the constitution? Not because he hates the constitution. Yeah. Why did he say he'll attack somebody? Not because he hates somebody, but he's making a point. He's telling you and me that we failed. He's asking you, why have you not done your job? You can write 100 things in those pages, but if they're not converted to action, he's saying, then what is the point? It is so many years since we got independence. So I very strongly believe that we should not have that law. You can have this intellectual conversation saying the nation, the state are all different. But for a citizen, the nation is a state, state is a nation. Let's be very clear.
And government.
And government, yeah, sorry, you're right.
And actually...
And the party in power.
Yeah, actually,
all of them are the same.
I was just going to say, should we make it so political so quickly in the conversation?
But it is.
Yeah, you can't not.
You can't, right? All the same, right?
Yeah, now the party is the government, is the state.
Yeah. Of course. So, I mean, if I'm angry with you, and if I then say, burn the constitution or the flag, what am I saying? I'm expressing my angst.
Yeah.
I am telling you, you need to take care of me. You have failed me. So I really believe that that's a very important tool for the everyday person. You're talking about people who don't have power to, to be recognized and called for meetings. Yeah. So I think Anna's speech, it's a longer speech, I will take a little part of it, is brilliant to understand what it means and how attacking symbols is also symbolic, if I can say that. Attacking the symbol is a symbol.
I get it.
So I think Periyar was an incredible example there. When I stumbled upon that conversation in the assembly, I was like, wow, this is what we should be discussing. Here is another nuance. So in fact, when we look at the Constitution, we celebrate the Constitution, but we also must challenge it.
Yeah.
We also must say, have we done enough?
Yeah.
Have we, which is why in the book, I'm jumping chapters, but in the book I say, I don't agree with Ambedkar. I'm saying prevented detention should not, And what obsessed me is that, all these people, legal people, every time talk about UAPA, POTA, everything. The only reason those things exist is because you allowed preventive detention in our fundamental rights. I mean, that in my opinion, that line should not be constructed in that manner. Fundamental rights, preventive detention should not coexist. But we have allowed it to coexist in our fundamental rights, in our constitution. I believe that has no room. In our constitution.
And again, we are seeing the consequences of that.
Exactly. You can be in jail without trial.
Yeah.
You can be there for months and months and months and months.
Yeah.
And social media can just throw accusations.
We have a long list of people.
Yes.
And Sonam Wangchuk is the latest person
Absolutely.
on that list,
I mean, the fact that he can just be in prison and then the Supreme Court has to request the government and say the man is not well. I mean, whether you like a person's politics or not, how can you get to a point where you can say, Stan Swami, a man was asking for a straw.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever it is, how can you say the Supreme Court has to tell the government, please take care of his health? That is fundamental right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
right to life. That is his right.
Yeah. And again, the point which I'd like to underline, which you make, is this, the fact is that you should have the right to rail against the state that is yours. I mean, that was created to serve you.
Absolutely. In fact, the fact that Sonam was making those questions and asking those things is his sovereignty to do so. Yeah. And by the way, if he didn't do it, he's failing as a citizen. Yeah. Let's flip it on his head. If you and I don't ask questions, we are failing as citizens. Yeah. We have now completely weaponized that. Yeah. That everybody is looking over their shoulder saying, even when you write a piece, you're like, should I use that word? Should I not use that? It is very worrisome. You
said that you had already started looking at King Ashoka and his edicts, and that was intriguing to you. Tell us a little bit about that, and then of course the Satyameva Jayeta. The preamble you've sort of addressed in a way, but let's do these two.
So I started working with the edict around 2022 with the edicts of Ashoka. I started singing them with the project that I did with Ashoka University, and as I worked on them, I found it fascinating at so many levels. One is that imagine a king 200 years before Common Era saying he's going to put out these moral or ethical values in public domain. Yeah. It sounds bizarre. If you look at what other kings were doing around the world, they were saying, I conquered this territory. I gave donations here. I am bigger than anybody else. I'm the Maharaja's Maharaj. Now, this is what you see. Yeah. Now, in between that, you have this man, which itself should intrigue us. Yeah. And there are things in his edicts which are stunning, things which may seem archaic, but there are a lot of things that for me resonated in contemporary conversations, right? Whether it's environment, whether it is the idea of Dharma, what is Dharma, what is righteousness or justice, and there's one thing he says, and I think I quote it in the book, is he says, what is harmony? He says, harmony is listening to another person. And doesn't stop there. He says, listening to another person willingly. I think this is just so beautiful. Yeah. And it's as relevant to the conversations we are having today, right? So he fascinated me. But I also realized he's a complex figure. Now, one of the things during the early parts of creating the Republic is I think Nehru had a personal fascination for Ashoka. There's no doubt. It's very clear in Discovery of India. It's very clear in his writing. And I do suggest mildly that some way he kind of modeled himself as this internationalist kind of. I think so. I fairly think so. Now, but I think most interesting part is the complexity of Ashoka. So here you have a man with incredible power who's saying all this in public domain and saying some things, some probably worked, some did not work. Now at the same time, he's saying other things. Now, for example, in that famous edict of his, where he says, I conquered Kalinga, but more than a lakh of people died, so many lakhs, lakh and 50 were maimed, etc., etc. He says, Ashoka is contrite. Did I really conquer Kalinga? That's fine. The next line, he shifts mode. So the forest people seem to be people that he is not comfortable with. Because I think forest was resource. And I think Nainjur Lahiri has already written about it in her book, where it was elephants or resource. And I think the people living in the forest, which would be tribal people, right? Were resisting him. So then he goes and says, just because I say I'm like taking peace and I don't, I'm ahimsa and all, remember I always have arms with me. I have force. So here there is a threat suddenly. So now these two come together. But I think we should engage with that complexity. So a monarch is at one point contrite, but at the same time is also exercising power. Now, it's exactly what you and I do every day.
In different roles.
In different roles, right? So I'm saying we need to see Ashoka in that way. And then from Ashoka comes this emblem, which we take. But the important thing is that the emblem is not fossiled and fossilized in Ashoka's memory. It is created with new imagination. It's again imbued with meaning that meant something in 1950, which was to say that this is a land of Dharma, this is a land of justice. I will interpret Dharma as justice in this context. And it's a land that this justice will prevail across the entire land. So the four lions and the four lions are not angry lions. These are benevolent lions. These are lions that care, and lions can care. And looking at the land that you have, you can almost imagine it like a film drone shot, if you want. And that's how I see it. And I think it's fascinating we chose something like this. If you think of it, was it in public memory? Let's think of that, right? It is not some symbol that people knew at that time, right?
Exactly.
I don't think so.
But what else could we have chosen?
So, you could have chosen, and that's other thing. So another thing that was done is they realized that any religious symbolism would probably create some issues. With partition has happened, violence is there. I think there was also those very practical concerns of what kind of abstract symbol do you want, and the more importantly, what are we trying to convey to ourselves and the people through these symbols? So I think, to me, that symbol is very close to my heart because I've worked with the text and I've worked with what it stands for. And, there's that little exchange. So the symbol is from the Sarnath pillar, which is where Buddha gave his first sermon. And I was looking at translations of that sermon and what happens in this section I quote in the book, and I loved it, is as Buddha is finishing his sermon, one of his proteges at that point is listening, and basically the text tells you that he's awakened at that moment. Okay, but one of the interpretations of that is Dhamma is started to spread when Buddha spoke. This new Dhamma, but it really started to roll only when his protege Kodana received it. I think it's a very important point. The ethics have to be shared with people. It has to be among people, with people. And to me, that really spoke a lot. And say that Dhamma is really functional when it is among all of us. And I think somewhere we failed in it.
Satyameva Jayeta.
Yeah. So
Amir Khan did most for this.
I have to give. Yeah, you're true. That's completely true. But the interesting thing was, the most difficult motto, most difficult symbols to work with were actually the emblem and the answer, because information was scarce. I filed RTI applications and all that. So to ask them, who. So like, for example, even now I can't tell you with confidence who is the one who chose Satyameva Jayeta. I can't tell you. I can propose that it's probably Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan or Rajagopalachari, because we know that both of them worked with the Upanishadic text, and this is from the Mundaka Upanishad, and that's where it comes from. Have other people used it before? Yes, they have. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel has used it, and there's this lovely thing about him learning Sanskrit in jail, which Gandhi talks about, like he's like a student learning Sanskrit. And on an aside, what's lovely when you read all these letters is finally they're like everybody's uncles and aunts and brothers and grandfathers. Many of these things, they're
very human.
They're very human. Like you see very little things being mentioned.
You can see little egos.
Of course.
Actually, not little egos. You can
big
see
ones.
many egos,
but
big ones.
I'm saying that's for me that part, which is why some of them I include, though it was like segues away. I say, we should feel those people a little bit. So where did it come from? So the Satyameva Jayeta comes, we don't know who picked it up, but the if you look, so I looked at mottos in other countries, but what I find fascinating is there were 3 or 4 kingdoms in India that use Satyameva Jayete. So the most interesting part of that narrative for me is finding this file where Satyameva Jayete is chosen, and the government of India is getting 2 sets of letters. One is about the motto, the other one is an advertising agency, a personal citizen, one citizen, the Brahmo Samaj from Kolkata, and the 4th being a king. All 4 writing and saying, we've been using this for a long time in our advertising agency in the letterhead. Okay, the other one says in our family letterheads we are Satyameva Jayete. Can we continue to use it or not? It's so fascinating, right? And the government gives different answers to different people. It doesn't give the same answer. Citizen, no way you can use it. And the Brahmo is very interesting. So they want to get antecedents which are older. So they say, we have been using, please remember, Tagore's father. From those days, this has been there, so they are allowed to use it. Then the ad agency, I don't know what if the ad agency happens, but the fact that people are asking these questions, writing to the Prime Minister's or Home Minister's office. So it was other thing is the active participation of people in writing and engaging bureaucrats, discussions on how Satyameva Jayete has been written. Should it be enclosed or not? And aesthetics, something we have lost today. Like, it's not just important what you say, how you say, how it's represented. These discussion colors going up to the Prime Minister's office. And then the president saying, I found that the press have got it wrong. They put squares around it. And the cabinet meeting, Nehru saying, no, you can't. It's aesthetically, So Satyameva is very fascinating. And the language was debated. The grammar was debated. But finally, we came to the conclusion that that's what it should be. So it was the toughest emblem. Because it took me a long time to put the story together and said, well, now I have a handle about this story. And I think it is fascinating. We chose something that you and I would consider utopian. But considering that we live in a land of today, of post-truth, pre-truth, I don't know, all kinds of truths. The fact that we have that is maybe a reminder, if you want, of what truth is. And what we are seeking at some kind of with great integrity. And I think maybe it's good. As some people say, who is going to speak the truth? You can get very, pessimistic. But I think sometimes having these symbols that kind of present an ideal is probably a good reminder. Which is why in this world, in WhatsApp universities, it's good that we remind ourselves that Satyameva Jayete is something that should be part of our vocabulary.
I want to talk about the 10 years that you exited the formal music scene, the Carnatic music scene in Chennai, in Tamil Nadu. And that decision, when you look back now, in hindsight, when 2024 has happened, you got the Sangeet Kala Nidhi Award, you ran the Music Academy.
Academic sessions,
Yeah, the academic sessions for a year. The 10 years that you spent out, what is the cost or the price of that? Is there one? Because, we talked about it some time back. There is a cost and a price that you make when you want to make political statements that you believe in. So what is the cost?
So I think that decision was part of a larger set of decisions, thoughts and discomforts with myself. I think we have to realize that, decisions and such positions come from also yourself. It's not like you're just telling somebody something. You're telling yourself something. People forget that often. And I think I realized that I loved this musical form. I love it today. I'll sing it till my last breath. It's my life. It's my worldview, to be very honest. I write because I sing. I speak because I sing. So it was, for me, why I'm uncomfortable is uncomfortable with the world that it occupied. And in a way, it symbolized not just that world, but symbolized our society. And descriptive nature of our society. And so when I walked out, I said, no, I can't. I've tried negotiating with this, and I think I need to step back, maybe look at myself, look at the space, and recalibrate my relationships with it, which is what I think I did over 10 years with other actions, with other festivals that we curated, many things. I won't go into that. And they've been have they been costs? Of course they've been costs. And there's cycles of costs, if I can use them.
I'm sure.
And there's cycles of violence. And, it's not fun. At a very honest level. I can act very brave and bravado. Sometimes it is not fun. It is, it's personal. It can get dangerous. And it's not just you. You're talking about your family. You're talking about your friends. You're talking about people who, in my case, even people who shared the stage with me are threatened. You share the stage with this guy, you're threatened. So sometimes, and those are things not in my control. My students, I know they struggled. I know they struggled. At one point, I actually wrote to all my students and I actually said to them, if you want to stop learning from me, I'll completely understand it. Because I don't want your career to be jeopardized or your opportunities to be jeopardized because you're associated with me. I sent an email to all of them and I said, I will completely get it if you even dissociate with me. Because what do you do? So it has a cost. It has an emotional cost. It has a practical cost. Of course, it has a practical cost. And then this whole question of self-censorship definitely comes about. I mean, there are phases when you back off and you say, you know what, I don't want to get in this anymore. So how does it affect your mental health? Yes, it does. I have sought help because it does affect your mental health. And at one point, and I never thought I needed it, but at one point I realized I couldn't breathe. And it's not like somebody is telling me something every moment. It's just the atmosphere. It's toxic. It's personal because it's not just arbitrary people. It's also people It's family. And then there is accusations thrown every day, and they're all lies, left, right, and center. More than lies, they are manipulations of words and statements. And then there is threats. And then somebody says, I've sung concerts with bouncers. I don't want to sing concerts with bouncers taking me to a hall. I've sung concerts with cops around. I've traveled abroad and had the experience. I've had a concert in Toronto where we need to get the university cops because somebody said they're going to do some protest. You're getting on stage to sing, mind you. Right? So, I mean, there was one day when a lot of crazy things were happening and I was leaving for the US. And I passed security and a young colleague of mine called me from the US and said, where are you? I said, I'm just flying out. The first question he asked me, he said, do you have security at home? And I never thought of it. I've never panicked like that in my life. I'm out of security. It's early morning. I know my wife is sleeping. I'm like, I never thought I needed security. And he's like, I think you should have security. Because there is a WhatsApp forward that is saying this about me. And that's being spread. So, I just I'm saying this not for sympathy or not for I have enough privilege to deal with it and something, but I'm saying this because of the callousness with which people behave. I think that is something that we need to think about. You disagree with me, vehemently disagree with me. You think that everything I'm saying is wrong, absolutely fine. But there is a line. There is a line. And I think we've completely forgotten there's a line. Even if you think that I should not have said this about you, let's talk about it. Don't even talk about it. But you are crossing many lines. And I think people with privilege must realize another thing. Is that they cross the line and they can sit at home. Somebody reading that may act on it. And that's the problem with hate and anger. Right? And I think that we have so much of it today and that people think, oh, to social media mein. No, it has a trickle effect. It has an everyday effect. It has, you are affecting people. You're affecting, and this is why it should be universal and not just about you or me. And so it's not fun at some level. But, if it's like that for somebody like me, imagine somebody who comes from marginalized society. We say, no, but they should speak. It's not easy to speak. Not. It is not easy to speak.
So have you come full circle now? What is the relationship now? And are things better in this Sabha system that you you had so many problems?
I still do. I mean, it's not gone away. Are there things that have improved? Answer is yes. Are it's too slow the change? Yes, not as fast. Can things change more? Yes. I think a lot of things are changing by themselves. Maybe people don't recognize it as change. That's the best thing for it to happen. But I do think things are changing. And I also think that's got to do with the younger people. I think there's greater awareness about... See, and also you wonder, why should anybody bother about Carnatic music or me? But the fact is, people who think in a parochial manner, think of the same puritanical notion of society and also put it on whatever they consider culture. And that's why it's part of this discourse and why it's so contested even today. So, but I think young people see through it. Young people see there can't be violence. Now, I think for me, the realization of that really happened when I sang at the Academy on 25th December 2024. It was the year I got the award, and everything had happened over almost a year. Cases were filed, blah, 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 blah. And on that 25th morning was my concert. And house full, people will come. Okay, blah, okay.
House full is an understatement.
I mean, yeah. Okay. So I went that morning to the concert thinking it's another day. I really didn't have anything else in my mind. My student was with me. I remember we drove in, people assembling. I went to the stage, got onto the stage, and the screen opened. I have in a classical concert in my life, I didn't see what I saw that day. And I'm not saying it's because of me. I think everybody there knew something had happened. First, it was bursting in its seams, but everybody was there for a personal reason. They weren't there for music, but they were also saying something. And that was a moment when I felt something very beautiful about it. They listened to me carefully, forget it. But it also told me that people were done at some level with just toxicity and violence and shouting. And in a way, everybody said, let the music begin. You know what I mean? And I remember after that concert, I came out. I don't remember people who came crying to me. They just hugged me and went. And it was, music, okay, but I think it was something else. It was almost cathartic for them. It was something that they had gone through. And that gave me hope. And that also gave me the feeling and understanding that, art can do something. It can change people. It can, at least momentarily.
And in the book, you talk about Rabindranath Tagore as the artist and the way he saw so many of these symbols and so many of these conversations.
He saw it. I think in some ways I am on his side in the Gandhi debate, actually. I think...
That's quite clear.
He's an artist. I have to be on his side. I really think the artist in Tagore saw some things that only an artist can see. Is the fact that we live in the grey. Is the fact that we are going to be fluid. And that fluidity comes from art. Because in art it's fluid. It's not like... You can't concretize something. And which is why when he argues with Gandhi, and Gandhi seems to say, you're a poet and artist, you can be filling your fingers and doing... What about the poor? No, he's like, no, that's not true. The poor make great art. They may not have food, but they make art. I always say, why does a mother who has no food at home sing a lullaby to her child? That's art.
You made this point about what does art do. You sang it a long time ago. But when this conversation about the Bengali and the Bangladeshi and Bangla is Bangladeshi, when this became so loud, and it is going to get louder, right, in the next few months, as a Probashi Bengali, as someone who actually can read and write Marathi but not Bengali, I came across this song that you sang, Dhono Dhanne Pushpe Bhara. I cannot tell you what it made me feel. I cannot tell you. And it's not that I was just reacting to it politically. It was also the fact that you don't know the language, you don't speak the language.
Yes, absolutely. I know exactly.
So the hesitation, some slight mispronunciation, and yet you sang it. And, I can cry now. We are mostly done talking.
I just love this song. In fact, a Bengali asked me, why do you pick this song? And actually Bengali asked me in Kolkata, I remember, when I sang it and said, I loved it, but why do you pick this song? Because it has again, a complex history, right? I said, no, for me, there is nothing, you can take it to be Bengali patriotism in some way, but there's something also universal about the description.
And has MS Subbalakshmi also
sung it? MS has sung it, of course. MS has sung it brilliantly. It's a gorgeous rendition. ধন ধান্য পুষ্প ভরা আমাদের বসুন্ধরা তাহার মাঝে আছে দেশে সকল দেশের সেরা, ও সে যে স্বপ্ন দিয়ে তৈরি সে দেশ, স্মৃতি দিয়ে ঘেরা। এমন দেশটি কোথাও কুঞ্জে পাবে না কো তুমি, সকল দেশের রানী সেজে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি। বায়ের মায়ের তো স্নেহ কোথায় গেলে পাবে কেহা, উমা তোমার চরণ দুটি বুকে আমার ধরি, আমার এই দেশেতে জন্ম, যেন এই দেশেতে মরি। এমন দেশটি কোথাও কুঞ্জে পাবে না কো তুমি, সকল দেশের রানী সেজে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি, সে যে আমার জন্মভূমি।
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this Janmabhoomi can be anywhere, right?
Exactly.
Anywhere for anyone.
It's a smell, it's a touch,
Yeah.
it's a feeling, and that's all it is.
Thank you, Krishna.
Thank you so
for
much.
everything.
Oh, no, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.